Yeah, Dak's the MVP right now. He's the MVP right now, and it's simple for me. Dak's road to MVP was just win.
Sitting right here, right before training camp starts, I believe they have a chance to be the best defense in the entire NFL, and I don't believe there's an argument that can be put up for that.
Dak Prescott, over these last 8-9 weeks, has been the best player on the football field, clearly. And it ain't even been close. And when you talk MVP, it's about looking like you're the best player on the football field, right? Obviously putting up the numbers and your team winning. And Dak is checking all those boxes.
Now with the playoffs fast approaching, it's starting to look like the Cowboys might be the best team in the NFL. And is this quite possibly the year that they get over the hump and finally make it back to the Super Bowl? Let's take a deep dive into Mike McCarthy's team, Dak Prescott's rise to MVP candidacy, and how the Dallas Cowboys built a staff and a roster worthy of claiming the NFL's ultimate prize. One of the biggest storylines surrounding the Dallas Cowboys during the offseason was the mutual parting of ways between the team and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore.
I don't think what was said about, listen, Kellen Moore is the next quarterback. He's going to want to score a ton of points, all that stuff. The Cowboys didn't lose last year because they were unable to run the football in certain moments. The Cowboys lost last year because the quarterback threw too many interceptions in critical moments.
Now the Chargers offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, was heralded as one of the best play callers in the NFL, capable of developing an explosive offense with philosophies he'd collected in his years around the game. The Cowboys offensive coordinator had mentioned in conversations for future head coaching roles, so the team's decision to let him go came as quite a surprise. Mike McCarthy would take over the play calling duties on offense as he had previously done while in Green Bay. And don't get me wrong, in our previous video, we did go over how Dak has had many turnovers in previous years, but Mike McCarthy was hoping to change that this year. I mean, back when Dak was throwing interceptions, the offense was on complete different pages. And because of that, they dealt with numerous penalties on the offensive line. And it was simple. McCarthy was going to eradicate those penalties in order to run an effective and an efficient offense. And don't get me wrong, things were a little slow out of the gate. And the overreaction Mondays following the season opener would have lauded McCarthy and his offense as a bust.
So many people are upset with Mike McCarthy and how vanilla the offense is. Dak Prescott throwing interceptions, his receivers not getting open, whatever the case may be. But who is at fault in your mind? Is the bigger issue Mike McCarthy or is the bigger issue Dak Prescott?
Dak threw for just 143 yards against the New York Giants in week 1. And after 6 weeks, it still hadn't quite clicked. Dak had thrown for just 6 touchdowns through his first 6 games, and the Cowboys were completely shut down by the San Francisco 49ers in week 6, with Dak throwing 3 interceptions in the ugly 42-10 loss. And looking back on that game, many people would probably write off the Cowboys saying that they couldn't hang with the 49ers. And honestly, they'd probably be right, but that was in week 5. And now McCarthy, Dak, and this entire offensive unit are one of the best offenses in football right now. I mean, as much as this hurts me to say it, and you guys always are in the comment section saying it, they honestly are scoring at will. I mean, they even did it against the Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas had a bye week after their week 6 encounter with the Los Angeles Chargers, and when they came back in week 8, they looked like a well-oiled machine capable of scoring 40 points every time they took the field. But the big question now, is it the system and play that's working, or is it Dak's work leading to Dallas's success as of late? Dak Prescott stepped up in week 8 and threw for 304 passing yards and 4 touchdowns against the Rams. The Cowboys won that game 43-20, with Dak hitting CeeDee Lamb for 158 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in one of the pairing's most impressive games of the season. I mean, the West Coast system had clearly clicked. It's a system that asks the quarterback to go through his first 2 reads, and if neither are there, pull the ball down and run. And again, it hurts me to say this, but the results have been sensational for the Cowboys. Dak threw 20 touchdowns in the first 6 games back after the bye, including 3 4-touchdown performances against the Rams, Giants, and now Commanders. Now hurtling towards the playoffs, the Cowboys are one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL, averaging 32.4 points through the first 14 weeks of the season. They've overtaken Miami's explosive offense and are scoring freely as they mount a late surge for the NFC title in a home field playoff game. And much like Miami, Dallas wasn't getting the respect they deserve because they just hadn't proved it against a good team. Then in week 14, in prime time on Sunday night against the Eagles, they absolutely manhandled the Eagles. And easily to say enough, that marked the end of that narrative. Dak has had his limitations in previous seasons with turnovers. He threw a career-high 15 picks in 2022 and hit double-digit interceptions in 4 of his first 7 seasons in the league. This year, he's only thrown 6, and in the last 7 games since settling into a new scheme, he's only thrown 2. And I mean, there's honestly a case to be made on how comfortable Dak does look in this offense. I mean, look, when you got guys like CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and even Brandon Cooks to throw to, you better be putting up some good numbers against these bad teams you're playing. I mean, is it true that Dak is thriving due to the perfect scenario for any quarterback with a great coach, a great scheme, and great playmakers around him? Or is he a genuine candidate for the MVP? A healthy offensive line has been a huge part of the success too, something the Cowboys have struggled with in recent years. The retirement of long-term center Travis Frederick came with an adjustment period, then right tackle La'el Collins moved on, left tackle Tyron Smith was out for an extended period, and the young talent filling starting roles and depth needed time to develop. This season, 4 of the starting 5 have played in at least 11 of the team's first 13 games, with consistency to support the offense not only in the run game, but in the passing game as well. McCarthy has made a clear point of involving CeeDee Lamb after a quiet start to the year, and Dak and his number 1 receiver now look like one of the greatest duos in the league. Since week 6, CeeDee Lamb managed 5 100+ yard receiving games out of a possible 7, and had cleared the 1,000 yard receiving mark in week 12. His production perfectly marks the blend of talent and execution this Dallas Cowboys team possesses in 2023. And Lamb's supporting cast is as good as it's ever been too. Brandon Cooks came over in free agency during the offseason, an addition that was underappreciated at the time. He did have a quiet start in Dallas to start the year, but the ever-productive veteran is proving yet again why he is so valuable in offenses, playing a great wide receiver 2 role to CeeDee. Dallas has one of the strongest lines of great tight ends also, and while some may have been surprised that the team allowed Dalton Schultz to walk away in free agency, those in the building knew exactly why. Their 2022 4th-round pick, Jake Ferguson, had looked great in camp, and Dallas believed he could step into the lead role as the team's primary pass-catching tight end. Once again, an elite decision with Ferguson covering Schultz's production without missing a beat and for a fraction of the cost. All of these decisions that have been going on are culminating in Dallas winning the Super Bowl this year. Their roster management and the ability to draft young talent to replace aging veterans is inexcusable and is amazing. I mean, in just the last few years, they've allowed the likes of Amari Cooper, Byron Jones, Robert Quinn, and La'el Collins to leave either via trade or free agency. They haven't missed a single one of them either. It's those roster decisions that allow for free agency deals to fill the right spaces. And now that the Ezekiel Elliott contract is finally going away, Dallas will be even better situated going forward. And we've talked in detail about this offense, but the defense may be playing even better than the offense is. Great teams can dismantle their opponents on either side of the ball, with elite playmakers on both offense and defense. And what's crazy is not many teams can compare as equally as the Dallas Cowboys can on both sides of the ball. Dak and the offense are scoring more points than any other team in football, but the defense is just as productive.
Bill Walsh said it. To me, he goes, you got to have 11 good players on defense. I don't think they had that last year. They got it.
They don't have the weakness at the opposite.
They have
point.
no weakness on that defense.
The other piece.
For starters, being able to retain Dan Quinn as the team's defensive coordinator when he's fielded calls for head coaching roles for the past 2 seasons is astounding. The former Falcons head coach has the experience to lead his own team to a Super Bowl, and he's cementing his resume as one of the league's elite while calling the defense in Dallas. He's got an entire unit playing at an elite clip.
They are so deep, they are so fast, they are so skilled, and Dan Quinn uses all of these guys to the best of their abilities. They don't put people in bad positions.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you can play free and you can play fast, you get to the ball, you hunt, and you're aggressive. And the New York Giants had nothing for them last night.
And even with injuries to players like Van Der Esch and Trayvon Diggs, they haven't missed a beat. I mean, do you know how hard that is to do? For a team to lose their all-pro cornerback that loves jumping routes and getting burned after just 2 games, and then still go on to perform as a top 5 secondary in the league? Dallas is allowing less than 185 passing yards a game, and they are only one of the 7 teams to have that average under 200 yards. Bland was a 5th-round draft pick out of Fresno State in 2022. Further proof of the team's elite scouting and development of talent. He had 5 interceptions in his rookie season despite not starting a game until week 10. And in 2023, managed 8 through the first 14 weeks with a record-breaking 5 pick sixes. I mean, 13 interceptions in 20 starts is absolutely absurd. And even when he is getting tested and picked on, Bland has continued to prove that he's eventually going to get one. And yes, of course, a lot of these plays in the secondary wouldn't be happening without the pressure that the front 4 are causing. The decision for the team to almost immediately move 2021 first-round pick Micah Parsons to come off the edge has paid off exponentially. He's now in his 3rd year and joins Reggie White, and only Reggie White, as the only 2 players to have 12 or more sacks in each of their first 3 seasons. That's Hall of Fame company, and Micah Parsons is a game wrecker who's playing freely, lining up all over the defensive front and getting consistent pressure no matter who he's facing. His partnership with DeMarcus Lawrence is great, and let's not forget about the unsung hero of that unit. This guy's name I can't pronounce. The undersized defensive tackle does some incredible work in applying pressure, getting sacks, and fitting run gaps to stall opposition's offenses. I mean, hands down, the pass rush is lethal from the Cowboys. And when you have guys like Bland and Gilmore that can take the ball away too, I mean, that's just a lethal combination. The result is a turnover differential that leads the league too. So just to get this straight so you hear me clearly, not only are they the highest scoring offense and playing perfect defense, but they're winning the turnover battle nearly every single week. And what's the scariest part is that this Cowboys team could be around for a long time. They are retooling at such a high and efficient level that it may be so hard to stop this offense and defense from retooling each and every year. And I mean, their ability to fill roles with late picks too alone gives them the freedom to pay high contracts like Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and even Trayvon Diggs too. Early in the year, they looked a little sluggish, but the bye week changed everything. Some would now argue that Dak Prescott belongs in the MVP conversation and his team belongs in the NFC Championship game. Like I mentioned though, fans and analysts had pinned the Cowboys as a great team when playing a bad one. Hell, even I said it. Their dominant win over the rival Eagles shut that down though. And now there isn't a single hurdle between the Cowboys and the Super Bowl too big for them. They have the players, the coaches, and the schemes on both sides of the ball, playing top 5 ball on both sides. So the question now becomes who the Cowboys will face in the NFC Championship game, since they look like the most likely team to make it right now. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments section or in our exclusive Discord, and I will catch you guys in the next one.